Top Ukrainian officials opens investigation into alleged plot to boost Hillary in the 2016 election, report says. A senior Ukrainian official told The Hill last week that he has launched an investigation into members of his government over an alleged plot to boost Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election. Ukrainian collusion. And this actually makes a lot of sense. If you consider what I think is a silly narrative of Russia collusion, which is probably not true. Do I think Russia meddled? Yes, I do. Of course they did. Do I think Ukraine meddled? Yes, of course. Is there Hillary Clinton collusion with Ukraine? Now, I don't know about that. I also don't think there's Russian Trump collusion. I think that's nonsense too. And I think it's obvious the Mueller report, I'll put it this way. The Mueller report is expected to be anticlimactic, and that's coming from several different journalists. We'll see what happens. But I also want to point out before moving forward, why is all of this still happening? Well, for one, the story about Ukrainian collusion is not new. Okay, in January of 2017, Politico did an investigation. They found Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. Kiev officials are scrambling to make amends to the president-elect after quietly working to boost Clinton. Apparently, they were disseminating documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption. And I believe that's Paul Manafort, who's, I also believe is going to prison. So perhaps Ukraine actually did take action. I mean, they conclude this straight up. Politico says it absolutely. And now we're seeing the ramifications that there's going to be a criminal investigation over this. Now, there's a few reasons why the Russia collusion, the Ukrainian collusion, whatever, these narratives don't go away. And I want to make sure I point out, while it is legitimate that the investigation has found there was an effort to boost Hillary Clinton, I will say it is politically expedient for people on the right to do this. Why? Hillary Clinton is still, she hasn't decided whether she's going to run in 2020. Now, Politico also has a story up about how Trump is on track for a 2020 landslide. So certainly you have Republicans laughing, saying, please, Clinton, run again. But here's the thing. Many people believe that Hillary Clinton isn't going to run or that she isn't running. And they're wrong. There was an article recently, like the fifth one, that said Hillary Clinton says she is not running in 2020. It's definitive. It's not. A spokesperson for Clinton apparently clarified, saying she's waiting until the Mueller report comes out to make her decision. Here's my prediction. The Mueller report is going to come out. It's going to be anticlimactic. It's going to say Trump didn't collude, yada, yada. Hillary Clinton's going to step up and wiggle her arms in the air while shrieking Russiagate and claim that Mueller is wrong and that they need someone to come in and put an end to this once and for all as president. And that will be why she decides to run. The Mueller report is going to say nothing happened. And she's, not only that, even if the Mueller report said something did happen, she'd say the same thing. So I'm actually betting she might run. And I think the reason they keep doing this, she was at the Selma Bridge, anniversary or whatever. Why is she going on tour and giving these speeches? Because she wants to keep herself in the public spotlight. So when she announces, you're going to see the whole mainstream establishment start hooting and hollering. However, we then start seeing stories like this, criminal investigations. But let's read a little bit more about what's going on. Ukrainian Prosecutor General Yuri Lutsenko told Hill's John Solomon, today we will launch a criminal investigation about this, and we will give legal assessment of this information. Lutsenko is probing a claim from a member of the Ukrainian parliament that the director of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, Artem Sitnik, attempted to benefit of the 2016 U.S. presidential election on behalf of Hillary Clinton, the Hill report. That's a quote. That's why it's broken English. According to the member of parliament of Ukraine, he got the court decision that the NABU official conducted an illegal intrusion into the American election campaign, Lutsenko said. It means that we think Mr. Sitnik, the NABU director, officially talked about criminal investigation with Paul Manafort. And at the same time, Mr. Sitnik stressed that in such a way he wanted to assist the campaign of Mrs. Clinton. Perhaps then the evidence we're seeing on Paul Manafort was just an attempt to hurt Trump's campaign. I'll say this, though. Look, if Paul Manafort broke the law, then there you go. He broke the law. He should be getting locked up. Several days before then President-elect Donald Trump would be sworn into office, Politico broke the story about the alleged Ukrainian effort to boost Clinton. So this is from Politico. Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter only to back away after the election. That sounds politically expedient. And they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a Politico investigation found. This is definitive, as reported by Politico. A Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting for the Democratic National Committee met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump, top campaign aide Paul Manafort, and Russia, according to people with direct knowledge of the situation. It wasn't John Podesta implicated in this too? Look, I got to admit, I'm not super well versed on all of what's going on with these stories. I haven't followed it very closely. My understanding is that John Podesta, who works with the Clintons, was also implicated. So where's this going, right? You've got Russian collusion with Trump, which is, in my opinion, probably going to be nothing. But what about Ukrainian collusion with the Clinton campaign and Podesta? Which, again, maybe I'm wrong about, The operative, Alexandra Chalupa, said in 2017, when it was announced that the Trump campaign hired Manafort, many Ukrainian Americans were alarmed and concerned. It was an early signal that Putin was trying to influence the U.S. election. At that time, I flagged for the DNC the significance of his hire based on information in the public domain. In a separate piece of The Hill, Solomon writes that the Ukrainian investigation centers around whether his country's law enforcement apparatus intentionally leaked financial records during the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign about then Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort in an effort to sway the election in favor of Hillary Clinton. Lutsenko is not the only Ukrainian official that wants an investigation into the ties between Clinton and members of the Ukrainian government. So it sounds like what they're saying here is that this is a direct Clinton campaign narrative of Clinton-Ukrainian collusion, not necessarily that Hillary Clinton herself was involved, but that they want to check into the ties between the Clinton members and the Ukrainian government. I want to point out that what's going on with Ukraine and Russia is extremely complicated. And this is tied heavily into actually what's going on in Syria. It's been a long time since I've gone over these issues, but I will just say this. The reason why this is so important, the reason why Ukraine supporting the Clintons is so important for the Clintons and for their interests is the Gazprom natural gas monopoly. There's a pipeline going through Ukraine into the U.S. My understanding, and again, I could be wrong, look into this, this is important, is that the U.S. interests and European interests wanted to send what's called the Qatar-Turkey pipeline up through Syria and Turkey into Europe to offset the Gazprom natural gas monopoly. Syria wouldn't allow it. We then saw a story in The Guardian from 2009 where there was talks in the U.S. about intervention in Syria because they weren't going to agree with us. And again, it's been a while since I've read through the story. It was from 2009. But apparently, after Qatar was going to tap this natural gas, Iran was going to try and tap the same natural gas pocket and send it through Iraq and Syria and benefit the Russian ally, with Syria specifically saying we will not allow the Qatar-Turkey pipeline because it would damage our alliance with Russia. This makes a hugely complicated issue where you then see the complications of the Syrian civil war. We heard Tulsi Gabbard say that the U.S. was funding and supplying these terrorists, that the CIA was doing this. Again, not super well versed. I don't like getting conspiratorial, but I can say that a lot of, some of these issues are really important. We then see the issue of the protests in Ukraine, where the Maidan protests, which happened, I believe it was back in end of 2013. I was actually on the ground there. And you had people who were pro-West or pro-Russia. There were people who wanted Ukraine to join the Russian Trade Federation. Apparently, that didn't work out too well. If we're talking about Russian collusion, we actually have this bigger narrative that actually gets really crazy and really complicated. Trump wants to pull soldiers out of Syria. He wants to defeat ISIS. He doesn't want to play these games. He doesn't want to go to war with Russia. So Trump is essentially doing things that are, to an extent, good for Russia. And the Clintons want to do things to an extent that were good for Ukraine. Ultimately, the idea is that Trump and the Clintons both had different ideas of what was going to benefit the U.S. in terms of international relations. Trump being, we should not be trying regime change wars, although he did missile strike Syria, and he is supplying weapons to Saudi Arabia, so I'm not sure I trust that necessarily. But the idea then was that Hillary Clinton wanted to work with Ukrainian interests because of the natural gas monopoly into Europe. It's complicated. And I'll say this. I don't want to get conspiratorial. I'm not super well versed on this. I don't know all the details. Don't take my word for it. Google search it. And I'll say, I don't really read fringe websites. A lot of this information I'm getting comes from The Guardian, which is to pretty far left on a lot of issues. So again, read up on it. But these are all things that I've been through peripherally because I was covering some of these things. You know, I was in Turkey dealing with the refugee crisis. I was in Ukraine dealing with the Euromaidan protests. And I was talking to a lot of people and looking at the underlying issues as to why there was this divide. And then it's interesting to see this may be a much, much bigger story. There may be something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. But if it's true that Ukrainian interests were trying to benefit the Clintons, it's likely it's because, you know, there's a lot of Ukrainian interests that want to join NATO or the EU. It would be very beneficial to Ukrainian citizens. Russia does not want that. Welcome to the proxy wars and this like Cold War-ish type thing that's been happening. But this is international relations. These things have gone on forever, and it's just the current iteration. So check out the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. That's Qatar, Q-A-T-R. And, you know, we'll see what happens with this story. I'm gonna wrap it up here. But I want to clarify too, you know, even Trump had tweeted about this. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump campaign quietly working to boost Clinton. I think it may have something to do with this big issue. Hopefully I didn't just step on the toes of the CIA. Now they're going to come knocking on my door. But I don't normally talk about a lot of these issues. We'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. I'll have another video at 1 p.m. I will see you then.